I've been a mixing and mastering engineer for 12 years now, and I've been on YouTube for more than 5. And one of the things that usually happens with somebody that has a YouTube channel for a few years, has a lot of subscribers, is they will start to create a plugin. And that's logical because it's a very lucrative business. It's a great business decision. And I've had a lot of offers from developers asking me if I wanted to create a plugin with them. And I've talked with them, and basically my answer was no. And the reason is different than you might think. Wow, that's a clickbaity title. Anyway, let's get started. Basically, all the ideas that I have for a new plugin aren't currently possible. And I'm not the only one struggling with this. I've been seeing more and more developers struggling with the current standards. And in order to talk about that, I want to rewind a little bit, because the standards that I'm talking about are standards like VST, AU, RTAS, if it's still being used, AAX, and yeah, let's leave it with that. You know what I mean. The current plugin formats, the current way the plugin connects with your DAW. However, the industry is running into a few limitations between this DAW and plugin connection. There are some things that are very beneficial that are simply not possible. And what we basically need is VST4 or Audio Units 2 or whatever it's going to be called. But we need a new open standard. And the direction that the industry is heading right now is actually the opposite way of creating a new open standard. The phenomenon I'm talking about is something that I call islanding. Now, what I call islanding is basically what a company like Apple calls the ecosystem. And Apple is very, very good at this. I mean, they are able to lock you out of certain features because you haven't bought enough of their products. Like, how evil genius is something like that? I mean, it's genius for them, but it's evil towards their customers. The good thing about a company like Apple is that it's so big that it is being regulated more and more. Thank you, European Union. However, the audio industry is too small to regulate. And I do see a dystopian future where there are a few companies that all create their own DAW and their own set of plugins completely in a closed ecosystem, and you have no options and you shall be happy. And that's actually the opposite thing of what I actually enjoy about the audio industry, and that's the whole variety of possibilities. Basically, the endless possibilities that are there. And creating such a closed ecosystem will be a bit of a benefit for the customer, because everything within that ecosystem usually works very good if they do it right, of course, which is, doubtful. And it's all very structured and reliable. I think a good example is the old Pro Tools setups with like the processing cards and the big box, like, expensive stuff, but it did work very solid back in the days. At least that was my experience. However, the biggest benefit of these closed ecosystems are, of course, for those companies. Like, why should a company actually care about creating a standard that other companies can benefit from? Like, that's not, the best business model. That doesn't make the most money. I mean, I do get it a bit. But yeah, this islanding concept is something that I would rather not see in the future. Now let's talk about a few ideas that are currently not possible. I actually call them dreams, because I don't think they will ever be possible in the current state of the business, but we'll see. The first thing that I've been thinking about is something that I call look-ahead processing. And you can also call this offline processing. Because one of the current flaws in plugins that I see is that if you use a plugin on a channel, all the processing in that plugin basically has to happen in real time. But there are so much more things that you can do if the plugin can already get access to what is happening in the whole session. I mean, our computers are so powerful nowadays. I can edit raw, 4K, actually 6K video on a Mac Mini. The computer should be able to, in the background, render out your session. And for instance, instantly, whenever we change a parameter somewhere in our session, give us the integrated LUFS value of something. And this is just an easy thing. Another thing that it could do is predict what is coming and adjust the parameters of a limiter to it. Or, so many more things are possible when a plugin gets offline access to what is happening in a session. And not just what is happening on that particular channel, because we can do that in Aura already, although Aura is really half-baked. It works great with Melodyne, but it could have been so much cooler if they would have just put in more effort. I mean, Aura can only be the first plugin in your chain. Like, that's already a limitation. Anyway, just being able to get offline data from your session. Whenever I'm quickly looking at a text message or quickly looking at a note that I need to read for my client, the session could be doing things in the background already. And it's just sitting there. And then at the end, I have to run through the whole track in order to get an integrated LUFS value. Or I have to render the track and then import it somewhere where it can measure the LUFS value. And this is just talking about LUFS. I'm sure that whenever this is possible, way cooler ideas will be born. Another weird thing, and this is something that I've actually been thinking about after I've interviewed Sam from Music Hack. I'll link that video here, where we talked a lot about filters within the plugins, is that right now plugins cannot communicate with each other. Because what can happen right now, if you have a few plugins in a chain, is that the first plugin is upsampling, then downsampling and using certain filters for that. Then going on to the next plugin, upsampling, downsampling, a whole bunch of different filters being used, basically one big mess. And this can really mess up your audio more than you might think. If plugins could communicate with each other, they could say like, hey, I already have the audio in 4 times upsampling. If you need it in 4 times, here you have it. And only have the last plugin in the chain downsample and do the filtering and all that kind of stuff. That can be a quality improvement that is currently not possible. Now, speaking of inter-plugin communication, I bitched about this in the recent Sonable video over here, but it turns out that this wasn't a problem from Sonable. It turns out that the thing that I was expecting them to do is not possible. The inter-plugin communication that Sonable is using in the Smart EQ is possible, but doing it time-based, doing it real-time for the unmasking of sounds, that's not possible. I mean, the last iteration of VST3 is from 2008. There hasn't been any development. Yeah, VST 3.5, but So yeah, and these are just a few things. I'm pretty sure that if I'm going to talk with a few plugin makers, that they will come up with way more ideas. Actually, one of the features that I've pitched to Sonable was like, hey, why do I actually need to learn this plugin? Why doesn't it, scan the track with the offline thing? And then I figured out that the offline processing isn't a thing. So, yeah. Now, what's the solution to all this? Well, Clap, maybe? Clap is a new plugin format, plugin standard made by UHE. And there's a lot of innovation going on behind the scenes. So in terms of processing and all that kind of stuff. However, if I look at it from my audio engineering perspective, I don't see any selling points, which may sound a bit harsh. Like it's a great standard and they're doing so many cool stuff. But if you can give me a unique selling point for wanting Clap plugins, then you are giving developers a unique selling point for creating Clap plugins. And if developers are going to create those Clap plugins that all the users want, then the DAW makers are certainly going to integrate Clap support in their software. And currently that's not happening because the only two major DAWs, there are actually more DAWs to support it, but the only 2 major DAWs are Reaper and Bitwig. And we need at least Cubase, Logic, Studio One, Ableton, FL Studio, and probably a few more in order to really make a dent. Now, I don't see this happening very soon because basically, as I said before, nobody cares about creating features to sell competitors' products. That's just how it is. Now, I hope that I've been wrong throughout this whole video. And I hope that in the background, innovation is already happening. And I really hope that I can look back at this video and laugh about how wrong I was. That's really what I hope, but I'm not really sure. And I would love to help. Now, if you are watching and you are in the business of developing DAWs or plugins or other audio-related software stuff, and actually also want to collaborate on creating a new global open standard, make sure to drop me an email, because I would love to facilitate and get everybody together and make sure there's enough coffee and cookies for everybody, either analog or digital. My email address is info@ytstudio.com. So instead of doing the YouTuber thing and creating a plugin, I rather drive the innovation of creating a new standard. Maybe this is going to be based on clap. Who knows? I don't know. The only thing that I want to avoid is this. And that's it. This video wasn't influenced by anyone, not by UHE, and also not by Cocos or Reaper. I'm running a paid-for commercial license from Reaper. I really think they deserve it as well. So this video wasn't sponsored or anything, and I don't think it looks like a sponsored video. So if you like my videos and want to support me, consider using my affiliate links. I'll link Thomann, Sweetwater and Plugin Boutique over here. And when using my affiliate links, a little bit of your purchase gets kicked back to me. That way you are supporting the channel without it costing you anything. That's a cool thing, right? The links will also be in the description down below. Another way to support the channel is by becoming a channel member. Channel members get early access to videos and access to some exclusive content. I'll link an Instinct playlist over here. Last way to support me and all YouTube platforms by watching more videos. I'll link an Instinct video over here. Thanks a lot for watching. Keep pushing. And bye bye.